Hey everyone, if you're wondering where episodes 657 and 658 are, they are two hilarious episodes where I did not edit anything when I was recording for David Pakman. And so they are full news podcasts with unedited bloopers. And some of the stuff in there is hilarious. And they're for patrons only. How else am I going to get you over there to patreon.com/the BPD show? Let's get on with part 5 and part 6 of this series. Let's go.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
When last we met, we were discussing Florida politics with Anoa Chunga as it intersects with the problems of independent media as well as progressive political spaces, the expectations that are placed on black, the expectations and the hindrances that are placed on black voices and black political figures. And we were looking at the Andrew Gillum race and addressing the question of why he would do a campaign rally with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And it's a mixed bag, as you will see, as we discussed with Anoa. It's a mixed bag in that it's both he needs to do it, because even if you and I don't like Debbie, and I don't think any of us do, she has an entire district that she won over Tim Kavanaugh, or whatever his name was. Not Kavanaugh, Tim Canova. And not only that, but had he not done it, he would have been very susceptible to a line of attack that it has become all too familiar, that is levied against black people, because I guess deep down everyone thinks anyone black is somehow, well, I'll let Anoa address it.
Again, too, this is specifically not even about people who like DWS, right?
Right.
This is about him being labeled anti. This is really about inculcating and dealing with this. How do you protect against being called
anti-Semitic?
And, you know, that's why that event, she's having an event that's at a Jewish center.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, these are the mechanics. And it's not saying that you have to understand how things work and just accept it, but you need to understand how things work and then have an alternative to it. Because we do lose a lot of people who either don't want to organize and come into these movement spaces with us. Like, I have so many black friends who are amazing organizers, but won't mess with any of y'all in any of these spaces. They voted for Bernie in 2016. They won't mess with you. And no, they wasn't trying to publicly come be in line with you because y'all was acting up. And like, you step back and have conversations and even some of my own experiences. And I've had people tell me like, no, that's not the case. Well, Bernie's just in it for everyone and identity politics is evil. Y'all don't even understand what you're talking about, because you start from the default of how it has already been bastardized and reconstructed to fit particular, instances versus trying to reclaim what the original work actually was and what the original purpose is, and bringing that into our organizing spaces. Some of the greatest victories happening right now are happening because of quote unquote identity politics, but as a envisioned by the sisters of the Combahee River Collective 40 years ago. Like, when you read Kenyanga Yamada Taylor's How We Get Free, like, and it really, really brings open, these issues for me. I'm also reading Emerging Strategies right now, which I've been saying, like, oh my God, I believe in an organizing philosophy that is grounded in the work of Octavia Butler through the lens of the character Lauren Olamina Bankole in the books, Parable of Soul and Parable of Talents. And I think this is the map for how we build the better society we're saying we need to have. And there's already someone who's done that, a brilliant author who's already done that in a book, Emerging Strategies, that's already put it out there. There's so much rich work out there that is not coming through the lens of white male progressivism. And we need to be able to not just take little snippets here and there or run with what we've heard people say as a part of a critique on the way Democrats do things, and deal with the original source material. Folks are real quick to tell you about how you need to read Marx or whomever else, but won't tell you to go read Fanon and a whole long list of other people. Folks will be real quick to tell you to go check out the new Chapo Trap House book, but you probably have never read Asada Shakur's book. Like, so there's a lot of real or we're real quick to quote Fred Hampton, to misquote Fred Hampton, to talk about what Fred Hampton was doing with white racists when it's ahistorical and you haven't read any of the original source material to understand what you're even talking about. There are people still living who did that work with Fred Hampton as well that you could also be talking to, but no, you'd rather be loud and wrong. So I don't know that I necessarily, like, I know Michael really loves that dumb left turn. There is a segment of folks, I think it's an overstated community of folks who exist primarily on, Twitter or around particular hosts and issues. When we talk about the real hard left, a lot of the real hard left are folks of color who don't mess with any of
that.
I'm someone who doesn't really like labels, only because I think that we have particular lenses. So like I said, I love and respect Michael a lot, but I even think that when we talk about like the hard left or the far left or these other characterizations, we're actually mischaracterizing like a lot of people, and we're actually whitewashing a lot of the work and organizing that is going on. Because like when I hear folks talk about the far left, like really like quote unquote far left, some might say is like folks like Lamont Lilly, right? And even like our good friend Eugene Puryear. Like, I don't know that Eugene considers himself far left, but when I'm thinking about a spectrum, I know they're both farther left than I am. And I'm honest about that too. I'm not out here trying to pretend I'm some uber revolutionary. My daddy's an uber revolutionary. I'm trying to be as revolutionary as he is, but like, it's complex.
Right.
And systems that I'm navigating and my 37-year-old self that I'm trying to figure out where I fit in and what I believe. I'm not going to come to y'all and pretend like I'm a card-carrying member of the Communist Party, but DSA is good enough for now. Like that's not who I am.
Right.
And for a lot of people who I think are even more left than you and I've been, who we greatly respect, who also push us in our understanding of things. So like, I know where y'all are coming from when y'all do that, but I just take a kind of step back and look, and this is the conversation we were talking about though, in terms of independent media being largely white, and male, is that there are a lot of voices out here. And because here's the thing, right? The same thing we complain about when all these like neoliberal trolls from the Share Blue crew, who claim that only the white Bernie bros are doing X, Y, and Z. And you have all these people who are always complaining like you're ignoring all these black and brown progressives who are saying the same thing we are. The same thing literally happens in our spaces. You're literally ignoring all of these women, black and brown voices that are making these very salient points, oftentimes larger than these people with their large subscribers, listservs and stuff and platforms. But, unless we're talking about hating Hillary or how Hillary Clinton is going to go to jail and then somehow we all of a sudden became a MAGA troll, like we're not going to have the same clicks. We're not going to have the same access to platforms. Like I have, like someone says to me, like, how are you a marginalized voice? You've been published and forward in Huffington Post. I'm like, yes, I have. It has taken a long time. It's a lot harder for me to get published. I'm pretty certain that I could write pitches and have a white man pitch them, and he would probably have more success getting his pitches accepted, even in so-called black publications, than I do. I'm pretty sure I can ghostwrite for my black male friends, and the same thing would happen because I've been told, like, we have someone who's going to write this, and it'll be like a staff writer for them. I'm like, okay, cool. My writing's actually better, but I'm not on their staff, and I'm not a man, or I'm black. You know what I'm saying? So there's all these different intersections that happen. But yeah, I had 2 pieces in the Huffington Post. Yay. But part of that was because of what happened with the NPR thing. The NPR thing backfired. Backfired.
Oh, I knew that was going to happen. That was one thing I knew for sure.
Like Ben, like I don't know, like I know I publicly thank you, but I still have to say it again. Like Ben, literally, y'all don't understand. Ben, that whole first week, Ben was like literally my Olivia Pope. Like Ben was like ringing the damn station off the hook.
Oh no, I called them like 18 times. Like
I'm going to roll up there. He was at he had he was like asking DSA folks. He was like, who wants to come and just post up outside?
And we still, I think Johnny Kaufman, I think Johnny Kaufman thinks that we've forgotten. No, we just, it's going to forever be in the back of our mind. And when he pops up again, we're going to remind him. of exactly. But I knew one thing was for sure: the NPR piece was going to work out for your good. I just know when people try to troll you and they try to tear you down, it usually works in reverse, especially when they do it in the most disingenuous fashion, as they did with the NPR with that hit piece. Well, two things about everything that you just said that stand out that I think we should really dig into, or at least mention. You mentioned the people who are actually in there's social media, the real worker,
like the real leftists?
Yeah, the people who are really out there. You know what I've discovered about most of them, as well as actual organizers, people who are actually out there getting the votes and actually out there registering people to vote and just organizing in general. They don't have time for it. They don't have time or care. Maybe they want to, but I know that they don't have the time to do all of this social media activism that is taking place. So I think that there is a great misrepresentation, or underrepresentation is what I want to say, of the actual left on social media spaces. And what we get left over in the social media spaces are people who claim to be left and really are just signifying what they and regurgitating what they hear from some of the more popular. I don't want to name names because I've been naming them all week, so I'll just take a break. But some of the popular people on YouTube and social media. So it becomes a social media left, and that's how I've started to describe it more in my podcast. It's the social media left. I'm sure there's exceptions to the rule. Maybe there's some real.
Well, I think it's the champagne social media left, right? Because in their followers, like just like we have champagne and limousine liberals, we have champagne social.
Mm-hmm.
And people who are like, oh yeah, I'm all for this, but then they have their writers that have all the bougie. Like, I'm gonna be real. I joke about this. I won't name this person because I don't know if they've said this publicly, but we've joked about being bougie socialists because I'm just look, everybody hates brunch. I love brunch. We will have brunch after my revolution. I love brunch, and you know what I do after brunch? I go canvas. I go to meetings. Brunch is self-care for me when I do get to have it. I like my Sunday liquor. I'm sorry, you can't take that from me. I like getting my pedicures, but I tip really, really well. And these are things that may make me problematic in certain spaces, and that is fine. It is what it is. But I make sure that the people who are doing the work so that I can have that in personal enjoyment are tipped and receive my gratitude, because what they are recognizing that their labor is helping me in my own self-care, and what I'm doing, that's the best I can do.
Do you feel like it's ridiculous for you to have to explain that?
I do feel like it's ridiculous that I have to explain that. But I was having a conversation with another sister recently, and she's like, we're all super down. We're ready to do what we got to do for the cause. But this idea that somehow, and really what's fascinating is people who are actually in better economic positions who are like, oh, I'm a socialist. And not saying that people who don't do well economically can't also be socialists. But when we're putting these really ridiculous constraints on other people, and I struggle. I've struggled my whole life. My family has struggled their whole life. And I have these moments of peace and bliss. And I make sure, I'm teaching my kids now, if you can't afford to go into a restaurant and tip somebody properly for the service you receive, you should not go into that restaurant. I'm trying to make sure my kids know when they are starting to go out with their friends and doing stuff, you should tip. We're trying to be conscientious that when we're going into establishments where we need to have cash to tip, that we have cash to tip. When they order pizza, of course they don't care right now because mom's paying for it. When they order pizza, they know they need to tip, and that they're expected to tip well. And I'll be like, how much did you tip? And I'll be like, well, that's not enough. Go stop them and put some more on the receipt. These are things, and I know that's a very small thing right now, but when we have so many people who in the tipped economy, it is the best that I can do in that particular instance, right? And with my limited time access resource, but I'm going to have my brunch.
I honestly feel
I try to go to restaurants that treat their work employees well, right? But I'm going to have my brunch, and I'm going to have my Ursula's Revenge on Sunday. That's what's going to happen.
So this is what this really in a way what you're discussing now, and the constraints that you put on yourself to I don't feel like you're ever trying to prove your progressivism. You're just doing what you believe is the right and good thing to do. What I'm finding more and more and more in these spaces is that there is an ease. There is a literal ease and there's people who don't have the constraints who aren't even asked about the kind of things that we're asked about, who aren't questioned in the way that we're questioned. It's like we're regularly.
Are you really getting paid by neoliberals to troll progressives?
Exactly.
I'm gonna put your financial business out there, but this shit is hilarious. Excuse my language, y'all. I'm so sorry.
I'm like
so
seriously.
This is like politics and grits, but on Wednesday. Like I'm like so astonished every time I see that. I'm just like, y'all really don't even understand what's going on.
Like they don't get like how genuine and how legit every single person who is in the core, and I have to stipulate this, the core of Progressive Army, like the core 5 of us, maybe 6 of us, maybe 7. I don't want to leave anybody out. That's why I won't name names. They don't get that we honestly do this as a labor of love and commitment to the causes that we fight for. Not one of us are making money off of what we do, except for me, some patrons. And God knows if I didn't have my patrons, I mean, like they're literally the only people right now that I would be like, okay, you don't want me to talk about that, then I'm going to chill just for one sentence or two, not even the whole episode, but I would recognize your dissent with me and we'll at least talk about it. Because if I didn't have my patrons, while everyone thinks I got money from George Soros or I'm getting money from neoliberals or I'm getting money from whoever, truth of the matter is, well, we'll just leave it there. You could read between the line, audience, read between the lines. But this is true about everyone. This is true about you as well, Anoa. Like you, in addition to, you work, you have
like my Patreon even is popping. Like, and I love my patrons and thank you all because y'all are actually really patient with me and allow me to not have as regular content as I'm supposed to at times because I am trying to learn how to manage working because I am doing electoral organizing work full time in addition to this. So in some ways it got better because I no longer have the regular full-time day job plus the electoral organizing plus the podcasting, but now being head first, deep, long in electoral organizing full-time with an amazing organization and team and stuff, I am still doing a lot of work and then also trying to do the podcast and commentary and stuff. So it's a lot.
That's so important because every person in Progressive Army works. And they work full-time jobs and then they do this on the side. They do this as a labor. I mean, whether now you're working in organizing, yes, but you're not getting paid to do media. Everybody works. And then there's an entire group, an echelon. There is class differences. Q mentioned this on podcast. There's class differences in the progressive circles, particularly with progressive media, because there are people who can just go around the country and tour on their Patreon money. They tour on their membership money, and they tour on, and the message that they tour on, what makes them popular, what makes them able to get this much money is because they tap into white men. They tap into that, whether it be white male anger or white male humor. But if they ever address issues that you and I have to address and people of color have to address and women of color have to address, they will not sustain that same amount of revenue. Period. It's just a matter of fact. And so the differences are baked in this class and race. It intersects right here in the progressive circles. And that's where a lot of problems come. It comes right here in our spaces. And we don't ever want to address it when the reality of it is it's very real, tangible. It is a material difference because if you and I catered to white men like independent media does, just like mainstream media does, you and I would be making money. We would definitely have that job that, came across our table. We would have all these opportunities. That was low key. That was dirty. But anyway, it's the truth. I'm just saying, because if we cater to that demographic, and you can call it identity politics if they want to, the audience, but Professor Sinkowitz said it's demographics, and that's what it is. If we think about it in terms of demographics, media companies cater to demographics. Mainstream media generally caters to white men because whatever, that's just historically been the case. Independent media is doing the same thing and they're taking it to the bank. But you want us to be your ally and you want black people to just line up with you and black women to line up with you because you're progressive.
Some do. That's the problem. Because some people decide that's their way in. That's what they're doing. That's how they've been able to shift from, having to work full time working for their corporate law firms while we attack other people who worked for corporate law firms, but we don't like them because they weren't mean. They weren't nice to us on social media. I'm tired of all of this, right? Like, there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on out here. Like, seriously, we if we're really about this life and how to expand and scale and really addressing the issues, because when you look at the demographics of like mainstream, like cable news, for example, right? I mean, it's old and white.
Yeah.
There is a lot of people out here, like for instance, the incident that happened recently, and like folks were suddenly discovering how horrible Tariq Nasheed is. Tariq Nasheed has currently attacked another prominent Black woman.
Yeah.
In media spaces. Jamila, Lamoon, who does like amazing work, right? And it's like crickets. It's like, because she's not a part of it. It's the same thing that I said, weeks ago. It's horrible when he attacks anyone. It shouldn't just be horrible. He shouldn't be our new boogeyman just suddenly because he attacks our fave, or your fave, rather, not my fave, your fave. Like, it's a horrible thing. Like, I blocked his account, not because I'm like anyone important, but because I got tired of seeing him get retweeted into my timeline. And it's real hateful anti-Black women stuff. Like, when folks don't understand that we are under attack, well, why do you align with these people? Because they're more likely to make sure that we got some backup than you are.
Right. Right.
I'm not saying that it's right. I don't really like when certain particular figures start caping for Hillary Clinton and only attack Bernie or whatever. That doesn't mean I'm not going to criticize Bernie. I am also going to call out the other stuff. But there are moments when these same Black women who stand on this opposite side of the field or whatever with the other team, and I'm not talking about Candace Owens' Black women. That's a whole nother conversation. There are Black women, and there is something about Black women, and I'm not going to say all women of color, because quite honestly, everybody ain't socialized the same way most of us Black women are.
Right.
There's something about us as Black women that we will stand and hold space for each other. I don't have to like you or even agree with you.
Right.
Seriously. Right. Seriously. Unless you're working to undermine our collective work, that's a whole different story. But we don't even have to have the same politics. Like, there are women that I've met being here in Georgia. We don't necessarily agree about the same things. We don't even like the same people. There's some people that I won't mess with. I wouldn't even, pee on them if they was on fire. Very select few group of people. I'm petty and it's early, and we haven't had, I haven't had petty politics with Brandon or Peach or politics and grits in a long time. So I'm sorry, a lot's coming out right now. But what I will say is, there are people that we don't necessarily agree. There are older women we don't necessarily agree, but they love and respect my voice and will lift me up and support me wherever. Right. Like, even like in my godmom, even in her social circles, we all don't agree. I'm surrounded by, I remember this time last year, I sat in a restaurant with a bunch of radical, amazing, beautiful Black lawyers and got railed at because I didn't suck it up and vote for Hillary. Seriously. And not because these people are brainwashed, not because they believe that this was the end all be all. Like, come on now. Like, you guys got to understand that people have way more credit. But what I have helped, show and explain over my work, and since that initial conversation, is that there are these other, groups of people out here doing work that you maybe don't know about because you're not seeing it come across your social media feed. It's not being amplified in the media. But like, Hillary wasn't winning Georgia, so me not voting for her like didn't change anything. I should have wrote in someone else. But like I it's a lot going on. And quite honestly, folks are like, oh, you just need to be a Green. Well, I mean, if you don't talk to some of, there are folks in the Green Party I respect very, very much, and I love what they're building. You know what I'm saying? Like, but at the same time, the Greens have the same exact problem. And in some ways it's even worse because they're supposed to be the better alternative. And people of color who are struggling, there are women of color who are struggling against misogyny. There are women of color who are struggling against misogyny, against racism, and trying to build a party that is actually true to its values, that also understands about investing and expanding the electorate, right? We have these problems in all these different spaces. That generation, these are women who are between their 50s and 70s. They're also the lawyers who worked literally with Angela Davis. Because remember now, even Angela Davis came out and ultimately said, right? So this is that same cohort, and it was around the same time Well, no, that was in 2016. So this was a conversation I had in 2017. And so this is a conversation that even people with Angela Davis's politics were having. And like, so they looked at me like, because my mom, like, she finally, so she was there with her peers. She was like, yeah, so what you were doing wasn't helpful. I was like, I told you I wasn't about to start caping for her. I wasn't going to carry water. I wasn't going to do that work. Like, that wasn't what was happening. And they were so annoyed with me. But again, this is a generation that's had to survive when we're talking about Black organizing.
Yeah.
And when we've seen people literally lost their mentors, lost their peers, you know, like there's a lot of context and conversation that needs to happen. Now, granted, there are other people who don't agree with them, and that's also fine too. But like, it was the oddest thing to be at this table with this woman, this table full of women who are like my aunties, who love me, who think I'm brilliant, and they were like so annoyed with me, and they were like, "That's not progressive anymore." And I was shocked. But like, they're not neoliberal trolls. They don't love Hillary Clinton. They probably have some of the fiercest critique of Clinton, Biden, all of.
Right.
But their generation and what they've been through has colored the way they look at the political landscape right now. And so, but we've been able to have conversations though about what does it mean. They're tired. They don't have it in them for this right now because they've already done this. And that's the thing though. We have to understand, you know, what our role is and what we can bring to the table and what we're doing. The conversation I just had, for example, with Tracy Corder and Jennifer Addison of Center for Popular Democracy about the Cancel Kavanaugh. They're among the women leading this since the Cancel Kavanaugh, Stop Kavanaugh actions that have been happening in D.C. In fact, both Jennifer and Tracy are featured in viral videos this week with Senators Perdue and McConnell, and I think Bob Corkle as well.
Yeah, I saw the one you shared.
But they we're talking about like what's at stake right now with the Supreme Court, and these older women that I know are looking in horror about the way the Supreme Court in this country is going, again, because they already fought through this one
time. Yeah.
They don't have it in them to do it again. We have to lift them up and help provide them. But the vitriol and the way people are engaging and communicating, they're going to shut down on you. And it's not about a respectability, because I'm not a respectability politics person, but there is respect and there is a way that we engage and build conversation and dialogue.
Think about that, though.
We have to work through that.
You said, I mean, think about it. Roe versus Wade, 1973. The women that you're talking about literally were on the ground fighting for that decision, only to see us be put in a position, and not just Roe versus Wade, but that's the first one that comes to mind. We're now in a position because of the election, that the fight that they fought, 40 years ago, now they're going to have to fight it again, all over again. And can you imagine that frustration? And then to have that just summarily dismissed as, oh, you're nothing more than a hill bot. That's the type of reductionist. Here's what I want to ask you. I've been thinking this whole time. Maybe the media space is not the space for Black voices. And I'm not saying that in terms of being defeatist, because it seems like the organizing space is problematic. I'm sure there's problems there, but in terms of just, you see more Black voices, Black women, Black men, whatever the case may be, successful in fighting in those spaces. And I'm not saying that we give up the space by any measure. No, Progressive Arm is not going anywhere. Neither is my show. But what do you think about that comparison between the representation of Black voices, Black women in organizing versus media?
I think it's I think we are at this stage where when we talk about progressive media, I think progressive media that is not grounded in movement and organizing spaces and issues, that does not have that as its core and its center, is fraught with issues and is problematic. And I know everybody can't be on the ground everywhere. It's very difficult for me. I'm only able to kind of tie into where. And that's been, I think, one of the challenges. We've never been able to really figure out how do we build that without having a wide network access, money, support to do so. But I know I shared this with you before, like Project South, which is an organization based here in Atlanta, but does work all over the South and includes parts of the global South as well, and Africa too, has this report they did last year with this. And they did it with an editor from the regional magazine called Scalawag, about movement journalism. And I really do see that is the space and way, and these centers that look at how to fuse the organizing and issue-based advocacy work as well as, journalism in these spaces.
Mm-hmm.
I think building that into the organizing, the electoral organizing work and space is where that value lies. Because however, one thing that you told me, Ben, when I remember I was struggling about a year ago, or I can't remember exactly when it was, but you told me that I need to organize through my show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I said to you, I was like, Ben, I don't know how to manage all this stuff. Like I'm getting really overwhelmed. I don't really know what to do. Like I have stuff with the kids, family life, blah, blah, blah. And I'm gonna be real with y'all. Like my relationship suffered because of this work. And I'm not going to blame my former partner because, he wasn't about this life with me. Like it is what it is. But like my family suffered because of this work, because I really do feel that there is a mandate that needs to be fulfilled and that I have to go hard in the paint across multiple spaces until that's done. And all the people who asked me to do work, and some folks I've dropped the ball on, and I do apologize. But I have literally put this movement space, these spaces, this work, this passion before my former partner and my children at times, because I really felt that this is what we needed to be doing. And this is we gotta, really do it for the whole fam and not just my individual one. Right. And so we're looking at, and I remember I talked to you early on though, at one point about how do I manage this? And you said you need to organize it. So then when I saw this report from Project South about movement journalism, I was like, this makes sense about how we're kind of working in a very symbiotic and intentional way with organizers with movement space. Because part of the problem is we do have the social media activism space, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? And I know you weren't making that point earlier. It can be really good, but it needs to be the digital has to be connected to the on the ground physical organizing that's happening. And there are a lot of folks who I've had say to me, I really wish we had a real comms apparatus for the work, because there are a lot of people doing amazing work, but they don't get the credit, they don't get the shine,
right?
And because people don't know they're doing it, right? And they know that story, they don't know that these stories are the stories that need to be told. So they're regurgitating. People say, well, this is what people are demanding, so this is what we're giving them. No, we are in a very unique position in this space to build and direct and nurture the narratives and conversations that should be had right now.
Right.
And we should be leveraging that not to assuage ego or not to further angst on particular issues, but to actually bring hope and the light unseen to this movement space. Because there's some amazing, the reason why I have not completely fallen apart and given up is because I'm inspired every single day by so many organizers. The stuff that I'm learning about the South, I am even more angry at the Bernie campaign for not actually having put in the damn work here in the South with radical Black and brown organizers, because the South is definitely winnable. The South is definitely progressive, and the South is rising. But the South is not rising in that very, scary white nationalist way.
Sure.
The South is brown, and it's Black, and it's proud, it's Asian, it's beautiful, it's queer, it's phenomenal what's happening down here. But people don't know because they sit in their silos and aren't paying attention to what's going on the ground. And there are some people out there who will try to do their parts, but unless it makes major headline news, then folks want to talk about it after the fact. But literally, I will be talking about something, or other folks will be talking about something for weeks or even months before it even makes mainstream media. But then all of a sudden, because mainstream media is getting the narrative wrong or they're not doing the best job, then progressive media folks want to step in oh, can we have 15 minutes about this topic? No, I don't have to talk to you.
Right.
But I do have to figure out how to build my own spaces to help, get the message out for the people that we can do what we need to do.
Anoa, I honestly think that's the best place to end. What you've just said really kind of is our mandate, right? We've talked about the problem. We talked about the depth of the problem, the existence of the problem in every space, whether it be obscene conservatism or the Democratic spaces, progressive spaces, Green Party spaces. The problem is there, but you just gave us our mandate. And I think that's something that every listener should grab hold to and take seriously. And I'm going to do it myself. I don't think I was getting weary, but I know one thing's for sure: the groundwork that we are laying with Progressive Army, and each of us individually, but we just say Progressive Army because it represents the group of us who are in this in the most sincere fashion. The work that we're laying down, those roots are so deep. I actually want to say one other thing, and you can feel free to comment on it or just say bye to the folks, tell them how to get up with you. One thing I've noticed is that does it still amaze you how we have smaller audiences by the numbers, our YouTube channels, we have decent Twitter followers or whatever the case may be, but we have the biggest impact in so many different spaces. It's like outmeasured, right? It's disproportionate to our audience sizes. And so that to me always is a reason to, I don't know, it just motivates me that even though my audience sizes are smaller, people are always talk about what we talk about, and people catch up. Like you said, you guys are talking about it before anyone else. And then finally the entire nation catches up to what you guys are saying. That could be frustrating.
Because specifically the Randolph County voting incident, I literally hopped in a car on a Thursday. I couldn't go on the Friday, but I literally hopped in the car on a Thursday, and I didn't even have like my backup charger because I missed. So I was kicking myself because I didn't have certain video footage. But literally, I see people who are like white men tweeting on Twitter, just tweeting, and they have these viral tweets, and like it's like I literally was there first. I was literally there. I literally was talking about this issue. Folks have been in Oregon. Folks are like wowing and, oh my God, did you see what Greg Palast tweeted? No diss to Greg Palast and all of his work. But like, we've literally been talking about the voter purges. I've been talking about this during the primary when your progressive fave journal bros were trying to convince you that Stacey Evans was the real progressive in the race, even though her campaign was positioning her as a moderate who wanted to woo Republicans.
Yeah. Yeah. No, with the Randolph County, there's two issues that I took directly from you, because you sound the alarm. And then I was like, well, I don't really see a lot of people say anything about this. So I grabbed it and I did a story on that. And then I believe somebody else picked it up. But it was like 3 days. 3 days after I covered it when it became, people started to pick it up. But you had already covered it like a week before that. So it's like time and time again, it's the people on the ground who are actually not only covering the news, but making the news and experiencing it as it happens. And then generally somebody with a big platform, just tweets it out, and then all of a sudden they become the hero of the moment. But, that's an unfortunate byproduct of this, but that's all the more reason why we just have to keep building these platforms. We have to keep building our platforms so that we have the ability to sound the alarm. As you experience the news in Randolph County, you tweet it out and then it becomes the news. That's ultimately what we have to do. That's movement.
Yeah. And we have so many amazing, like if we can just connect, this is why I like the movement journalism model, and I'll retweet out the report for folks too.
Yeah, do that.
And I'll check out Project South because they are doing amazing work with movement building and like, the Southern Movement Assembly movement and just all types of stuff that's going on. Like, and I've been trying to figure out how can I work. That could be where my work starts shifting as it turns to media is really shifting in that more intentional way. But like, we do need to figure out how to do this and how to scale up as we're moving into 2019 with municipal elections and then 2020 with the presidential cycle and beyond, because we cannot have a repeat of the hysterical freaking coverage that we saw in 2016 on all sides, quote unquote. And then the final thing I'll say to this, and I know you want to close out, is that we are behind. Progressive media, left media, liberal media, we are behind. The right is winning the war on media, regardless of what their platform is across the board. And that is because they are speaking to issues that are, whether they're accurate and factual, they're speaking their own personal brand of whatever that is, right? Of whatever they're calling it. And we are not going to combat by simply doing this nonsense about, oh, they made a good point this one time, or, at the entity, or, oh, identity politics. The worst identity politics right now is that which centers white male fragility and white fragility generally in all of our spaces. And until we really cut through and deal with it, and again, this is not a personal attack. I interviewed a doctor. Oh my God, her name is slipping my mind right now. But she coined. She's credited with coining the term white fragility. We talked about this. Like, we have a society that socializes white as default. Like people don't even think about it because it's the default in every mindset and everything that people are doing. And the rest of us are the other. This is just acknowledging that we have a continuous othering of people and their experiences and that we need to be more present and cognizant. That goes for all of us. But we particularly, this whole conversation ongoing about identity politics is bad. And why are you talking about identity politics? Yes, as a Black woman, my experience is very different. Absolutely matters. It doesn't mean that when I mess up or that my politics or anything else about me should be excused because I'm a Black woman, but it means that because I'm a Black woman, the issues, the way my body, the way my life, the way my existence, the way my hair, the way my every experience, my value is judged and regulated by this larger mainstream society, my sexuality, all of it. Like, yes, it absolutely matters. What's happening right now in DC, when we see is so much focus on like white women right now in this conversation is predominantly led by Black and brown women organizers, right? And you don't see their voices, their stories, or their narratives, but we see that across the board in everything that we do. It's not that Black and brown women are saying that pay attention to me and don't excuse everything I do, but it's pay attention and understand and realize that when we look at the wage disparities in our communities and our families, when we look at the disproportionality that affects Black and brown women greater than our white counterparts and white men, when we're talking about these things, these are extra hurdles and these are other attributes that we have to deal with in the context of everything else that we're all collectively doing on top of what you're dealing with. Matters. It absolutely matters. And you know, demographics is an issue, but when it's being weaponized as a tool against people, as was done by certain so-called progressive outlets in terms of Ayanna Pressley's win, we need to be real about that. Ayanna Pressley and people organize and mobilize the people on the ground. Right. You know, AOC did the same thing. We can critique people. I'm not saying you can't critique Black and brown people. Everybody, nobody's above critique. Not at all. But there's a way you go about doing it. And some folks need to kind of step back and look at the way they do what they do because it reeks of white fragility and white supremacy. And to make you a bad person, but we need to deconstruct it. We need to dismantle it within our spaces, within our mindsets, and the way we're making moves.
I honestly don't think that they can do it, and I hate to be the I hate to be the sourpuss on this one. I just don't think that they can do it because it requires a, you know what, the only way I can describe it is what it took for me to actually get over some of my misogynist hurdles and some of my homophobic hurdles. Homophobic less so. It was a little easier to get over that because it was just a matter of I don't know why that was easier, but the misogyny that is just we're groomed in. It was hard because I hated to hear people call me out about it, you know, and whether they were speaking to me directly or indirectly, it would burn you on the inside to hear somebody describe men doing something the wrong way or whatever the case, you know what I'm saying? So because of that, I just apply that to what's going on in the minds of some of these white progressives. They don't want to hear this. It literally burns their soul. Like it makes them furious and they try to excuse it away over and over and over again. And then they say that they really are allies and that it's the Democratic Party who's actually doing that they don't really care about your identity. And I'm like, I don't honestly think that they can do it in these spaces, particularly the media spaces, because they have a financial incentive not to do it because they can cater to that white fragility by just by their existence. Yes, but by what they don't cover and how they won't cover it, right? If they talk about it, it's just about taking a knee and Colin Kaepernick. That's the scope. That's like the freaking scope of what they talk about with regards to race. And we have a myriad number of issues that haven't even been broached. So I don't think they will do it in the media spaces because they don't have an incentive, a financial incentive to do it, which means that we absolutely have to do it. We're going to have to keep building, even though we are literally bootstrapping every step of the way for the last 3 years, bootstrapped every single thing that you see. Like I notice, let me put it in perspective for them and then you can have the last word. I notice when the money comes out of my account every month for to cover Progressive Army's hosting package. Like that's how close and to the ground and bootstrapped we've been doing this since the very, very, very beginning. Every single one of us. So anyway, that's my spiel. I don't think that they're going to do it. And I think that's all the more reason we have to build our spaces and build them bigger, which means we're going to have to get money. And if progressives aren't going to provide the money, then Do you think we're not going to take money from somebody who you're going to call a neoliberal corporate shill? No, we're going to take the money and we won't take it from the conservatives. That's like the limit. I'm not going to take any money from conservatives because they're not going to like my message at all. But anyway, the audience gets the point. Noah, get the last word and tell everybody, if you want to, this is what I say now. If you want to be contacted, tell them how to get up with you.
I mean, y'all already know. You can find me on Twitter. If you haven't already unfollowed me, you can refollow me if you want. But I do believe in blocking if you're abusive.
I am definitely a blocker now. Matter of fact,
I know you're a blocker now. Look at you.
I've grown up. I had to mature.
I mean, there are people I have blocked and muted. I mean, most people are muted. A lot of people I have blocked because y'all what you call conversation is actually abuse. Right. There is a line there. But y'all can follow me on Twitter, The Way with Anoa. You can check me out on the podcast, which I am trying so hard, but this is my first election cycle. I just launched endorsements for 31 municipal candidates, bringing my total cycle of endorsed candidates to 59 overall, and 44 who are moving on to the general have already won their elections. So the new gig is keeping me hella busy. Municipal work is important, necessary, and it needs all of our attention, but you can hit me up again, The Way with Anoa. Check out the podcast, The Way with Anoa. It's on Simplecast, iTunes, SoundCloud, some other places. I forget where it's all at. People tell me like, "Oh yeah, I listened to your podcast and this." I was like, "Really? My podcast is there?" That's
that's cool.
But you can also check me out on Facebook at Anoa Changa ESQ. So just come, drop by. You can shoot me an email or go check out the website and send me a message and let's talk, because we're gonna be doing a lot of this for the long haul. I mean, we here and we're not going anywhere.
Sounds like a winner. You just reminded me. I got to export my muted accounts, which there are some 750 muted accounts that I have, and I'm going to import them as a block list. So I'm going to jump up from 250 people blocked to 1,000 people blocked, and it's so
I didn't know
healthy.
You could do that.
I don't know that you can.
I actually have. I have words. I have words in people's handles. Like I also mute people's handles as words.
Huh.
That I never, because so back when the Smithy thing happened, that's when I first learned to do that. So that I would never see things like dark money and the rest of that nonsense. Because it's not that these aren't conversations and issues that I want to, there are people who engage in bad faith.
Yeah.
And they prey on folks' weaknesses, fears, and sensibilities, and then we'll have them come as a mob. And then somehow they claim that we're actually the bullies in the mob, which I really don't understand.
It's the same shit that Republicans do. Same thing Republicans do when they act like they're victims.
Republicans do.
Same thing. Bullshit. But anyway. All right, Anoa, thanks for like an hour and a half of your time. And we still have a few minutes of an offline conversation that you and I have to have. So... All right. I think that's a wrap, folks. I think we've covered as many angles of this as I'm going to cover. I'm sure there's much more to this story, to this conversation to be had. Thanks to Anoa, thanks to Wendy Muse, thanks to Professor Matt Sinkowitz, thanks to Q, thanks to Aaron, thanks to everyone who participated in this impromptu series on the problems of independent media and progressive media. These problems aren't going to go away, as I stated. I think one of the main things I said in this last clip was that I don't think it's going to get better. Not because it can't get better, because there's no financial incentive to get better. And so we need black media. We need black media that, historically it has been the case that black communities have carried the progressive movement. I mean, much of the progress that we've made in this country has been made on the backs of black people. And so we need black media because of all of these reasons. And there is going to be a benefit, a genuine benefit to all of America because of the progress that is pushed by black people for black people that's going to help all people. I mean, that has literally been the case through American history. And we often try to think that it's the case in terms of if we just push class, then it's going to benefit everybody. That has not historically been the case. I mean, these are not matters of opinion. These are matters of fact. Even with the New Deal, we saw that. But it has been the case that anytime there's been progress for black people, there has been progress for all people. Similarly with media. And so some of the issues that have to be covered and the angles, like the nuance, just the conversations are not going to be had by progressive, The progressive bros who have the independent media space on lock, they're not going to have it. And unless you're just comfortable not having those conversations and having your conversations limited to be about Colin Kaepernick taking a knee or whoever got shot lately by the police, if that's the scope and the range of your political analysis on issues of for people of color and black people specifically, then fine, continue to go to those outlets for that. But for the rest of us who understand that at every single story that is headline news actually has more nuance. And this is not just, I know the conversation, it's been 40 minutes, but like I recorded this 2 days ago and now it's fresh on my mind. So I have to say this. This is not only applicable to issues for black people or people of color or for women. The nuance is lacking on most stories. The nuance is lacking. Either you just get a hot take or you get some dumbed down, reactionary styled stuff to just keep you angry, and you miss everything. You miss all of the subtle nuances that would actually help you weaponize the truth against some of the people we're fighting against. And so it becomes critically important that that these differences are recognized, but not only recognized but acted upon. And obviously, that. Even though it may appear as though Ben is down and out, I'm always working on something. So, even though it looks as though I'm down and people are rejoicing over me, my show not having much right now and not having reach right now, that's fine. And that's totally cool. The funny thing about it is before I close with something that's very, very boastful and arrogant, the funny thing about it is my show, Progressive Army, are the number one trait, as we stated in this podcast, the number one trait that should help you understand how genuine what we do, who we are, is the fact that as small as our platform is, we have an outsized impact on the conversation, on the discourse. And that's something that people with thousands and hundreds of thousands of views, and that's something that they still don't have. Some of the people trying to jockeying to replace us, they can have the views, but they'll never have our voice. They'll never have our impact. And our impact will continue to grow because what we do is from the depths and the sincerity of our heart. So, as the sacred text says, rejoice not over me, my enemies, though I have fallen. I will rise. Progressive Army will rise. Take care, everyone.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Thank you.